Hi, I'm Joy. Let's talk about Taurus. So, Taurus is the second sign of the zodiac and it comes after Aries. Aries is basically the spark of life. It's like the toddler that says, like, I want to do it myself and just wants to like go and explore the world and, test its strength. The next stage is Taurus, which is the stage where kids start to say, I want, mine. And this is a very, very important part of life because it's basically how we enjoy like the simple things in life. It's the pleasantries. It's the um, stability, like the sense of this is who I am, this is what I do, and it's a very stable thing. It is a fixed sign, which is what grants it that stability. And it's also an earth sign. So it's very focused on the physical world and to a certain extent, like practical stuff too. I think more so physical stuff than other earth signs though, potentially. But as opposed to practical stuff, like I think Capricorn and Virgo are more practical in their focus than Taurus is. Taurus is more sensual and physical and material in the focus. So basically, how the lower expression of this works, and the lower expression is when it's too extreme and it's not incorporating enough of its opposite into it. The lower expression looks very shallow, very superficial, doesn't think about anybody else. It's just very like, this is me and what I want. So there's a certain selfishness to it as well. Aries can also be selfish, but Aries is selfish in this like, I just want to do the thing kind of way. Like, it's not like, well, this is what I want and what's important to me, and what you want isn't as important to me as what I want. That is what Taurus does. This is the lower expression of Taurus. And like I said, it's an important part of life. So a certain amount of this is very important. However, it needs to be in balance with its opposite, which is Scorpio. So I think a good like example of this archetype would be like imagine like a teenage girl, like, head cheerleader, spoiled daddy's girl who is just all about like looking pretty, having nice things, going shopping, enjoying frappuccinos at the mall with her friends. And if somebody has a problem, like let's say like one of her friends like loses a loved one, she's like, oh, well, want to go shopping? Some retail therapy can take your mind off it. No, okay, I'm just gonna go do that. And bails, because the opposite of Taurus is Scorpio, and Scorpio is all about darkness, secrecy, pain. And in Scorpio, that's where we hold space for the more difficult things in life, the more painful things, the um, loss, and some of the scary things in life, our own darker nature that a lot of us try to repress and convince ourselves isn't there. A lot of that is, obviously that can certainly get out of balance as well, but a little bit of that, holding space for some pain, that's what's necessary in order to balance Taurus. So a really good example of this, and there's some other energies there too, obviously, like no character is just like a pure example of any one sign, but I think a good example of the lower expression of a sign, which then later turns into the higher expression, is Cordelia from the Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel series. In the beginning of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, she's like pretty lower expression Taurus, and she's got like a little bit of aggression there. That's not a typical Taurus thing, but the way she's very shallow and superficial and spoiled, very lower expression Taurus. However, as the series progresses, she starts to, and then progresses into Angel, she really starts to see and experience some of the darker parts of life, and she really grows into more of a higher expression of Taurus as the show continues. Well, both series, as they continue. So if you've seen those series, you might know what I'm talking about. If not, and it's important to you, you could check them out or not, whatever. But basically, I think that's a good example of it. And what we see when we have a lot of Taurus expression in a person that also is balancing it out with Scorpio is this understanding that, you know, when we feel bad, sometimes the best thing that we can do is like wrap ourselves up in a nice cozy blanket and light some candles and, you know, enjoy our favorite old movie, or, you know, just relax, eat our favorite comfort food. You know, we can pamper ourselves physically as a way to take care of it, but doing that all of the time means that that darkness never gets addressed, recognized, processed, and it just grows, and like it ends up being a much bigger problem. So there's this awareness that, yeah, sometimes it's, you know, sometimes it's good to just go ahead and take care of yourself physically when you're having a rough time, or even when you're not having a rough time. Like, man, feel good, pamper yourself, do it, you know, like it's great. This is a very important part of life, and it's very good for the nervous system, which is a big deal. But it's also important sometimes to just sit there with the darkness and just be there with it, acknowledge it, experience it. And doing that brings a lot of depth into the Taurus archetype, and also allows for loyalty, intimacy, and kind of a broader understanding of life, really. And you know, that's a really lovely balance there. You know, someone that is capable of like enjoying the finer things in life, but also knows when it's appropriate to hold space for things to be awful for a bit, and also knows how to connect with other people and can be caring. And you know, somebody comes to you and, you know, they're experiencing some darkness in their lives, to be able to be there with them in that, that's another higher example of higher expression of Taurus. So there's all that, and there's one other point I wanted to make here. What was it? Just gonna pause and think on that for a moment. Yes, the other thing is that Taurus is a yin sign, so it's much more about receiving than it is about like outward focused energy. And you know, that's why like Taurus can be spoiled, and you know, and there are healthy ways to be spoiled too. Being spoiled isn't always a bad thing, but you know, like being a gracious and grateful and enthusiastic receiver of gifts could be another like higher expression Taurus thing. And the other point I wanted to make is that if you have a yang planet in Taurus, it's not going to look the same as if you're dealing with a yin planet in Taurus, or just like a very pure expression of Taurus. So like if you put Mars or the sun, you know, one of the yang planets in it, suddenly it takes on a little bit of a different feel or expression of it, because you've got an outward moving energy instead of an inward moving energy. So anyways, that's about it for now for Taurus. I would love to hear your thoughts. Go ahead and tell me how you experience Taurus in your life. We all do, even if we don't have any placements there. I personally have Chiron there, and also Pallas, but having Chiron in Taurus is difficult because there's a lack of stability. sometimes there was a message that you like shouldn't trust your own values and that your values don't matter. And like a belief that you don't deserve to have nice things can be part of having Chiron in Taurus. And you know, so these are some very like Taurus themed issues that I have experienced in my past. And you know, it's important, I think, to mention here that one of the things that Taurus does understand, like higher expression of Taurus, is that if you aren't taking proper care of yourself and honoring what's important to you and your values, you're not going to be in a good position to do anything for anybody else. Like, you really do need to take care of yourself first. You know, there's a metaphor that I like, or analogy rather. There's an analogy that I like, that you can't pour from an empty cup. You know, you need to fill yourself up first, and then you are in a position to, you know, pour to, well, ideally to overflow onto other people. And so, you know, filling yourself up with love and care, support, comfort, you know, all of these wonderful things is the best way to take care of anybody else. Fill yourself up first. So, you know, I thought of another thing. I was ending this and now I'm still talking. That's all right. So another thing with Taurus is higher expression of Taurus is this understanding that you are literally what you eat. Like, you are literally made up of earth and light, and a lot of that light comes from the stuff that you eat. Like, plants use light to, you know, feed themselves, basically. I'm like gonna end up saying something that I shouldn't say scientifically. I'm just going to stop with that analogy. But basically, you're literally what you eat, and like the things that you put into your body have a very profound impact on like who you are, basically. So when I'm like eating food that other people have picked for me, or you know, maybe I'm going through a lean time and I'm just eating like really cheap food, like whatever I can. Or maybe I have a dietary restriction for a little bit and I'm like not eating the way I usually would. I feel like a really different person. And then when I start eating the foods that like feel right for me to eat again, that's when I like start to feel a lot more like myself again. And it's not just about food, like every single thing that's in your environment is also your sustenance. It's also feeding you. So like the type of television shows that you watch, the type of music that you listen to, the type of interactions that you have with other people, like all of this is like coming into you. And like, you know, humans are sponges. We are made up of a lot of influences from our environment. There's more to it than just that, but like our environmental influences in the foods we eat and the type of TV we watch or books we read, like all of that has a really profound impact on who we are. And higher expression Taurus understands this and understands that it's important to consume the things that are good for us and make us feel good about ourselves, because it matters. It matters a lot. So yeah, gonna wrap it up for real now. Thank you for watching.